Welcome to Not Till Now, a podcast about courage. I'm your host, Brit Stueven. Season 1 features conversations with performers and collaborators from the debut live show on January 28th, a night where firsts took the stage. In these chats, we'll talk about fear, the creative process, and what happens after you say yes to something you've never done before. Here we go. All right. Here we are today with my guest, Josh Shuman. Josh is a visual storyteller with nearly 2 decades in the film and television industry. He's worked on more than 30 projects, including contributions to 2 Oscar-winning films. At the debut of Not Till Now, he shared the story behind his first DIY documentary titled Out of the Wishing Well: Stories, Memories, Foo Fighters. In front of 320 people, Josh shared what ultimately gave him permission to pursue a lifelong dream. With that, he proved that even seasoned creatives still have firsts. So, Josh, I'm so glad you're here.
Yes, good to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
And I'm so excited to know that this is your first podcast interview. So, not till now.
Exactly. I guess I'm having my second not till now moment.
All right. So before we go anywhere, we need to talk about how your connection to Not Till Now basically started with me literally sliding into your DMs on Instagram.
Yep,
So
indeed.
so I'm scrolling Instagram one day and I come across this really funny reel of this guy dressed as a rock star, and I'm like dying, and I click over to see what the heck this is all about, and I realize that it's Jiwoo's jiu-jitsu coach, who I had spoken to one other time at a coffee shop when we ran into you, and maybe a few times in passing. And then I start just devouring your website about this documentary that you're making and reading the story behind it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And so I immediately message you on Instagram and ask you if you want to be in this show. You probably had no idea that I even did events. And then within 2 hours, you're like, yeah, I'm in. So
What's funny too is I didn't even realize it was you. I didn't realize it was Jiwoo's mom. I just thought it was some random person, but it was even better that it was someone that I actually knew. So that was even sweeter as well. But yeah, it was really funny how that worked out. Happy accident.
for sure. Yes. And then you fill out the application, and there's a scale of, how nervous are you? 0 meaning I'm not nervous, 10 I'm going to throw up. And I think you said 0. You're like, I'm not nervous. And I'm like, how is this possible? But I think you did mention you have a history of fighting and being in these huge fights with big audiences. Does that help?
Absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, I actually do enjoy public speaking, and it was something that I wasn't a natural at, and I certainly don't call myself a master at it to this day, but I like doing it. I like connecting with people, and I like that energy you feel when people are engaged with you and they're interested in what you're doing or what you're talking about, and connecting with them after whatever it is that you do, and just finding common ground. And to answer your question about jujitsu, absolutely, that's helped me because it's been one of those things where I like to compete, and I've done some competitions where it's like a super fight. And so I'm on a big stage. I'm the only match going. There's lights, cameras pointed at me. The match is being streamed over the internet. There's hundreds of people there watching, and then God knows how many people watching online. And it's just one of those things where I could get choked unconscious or just lose very embarrassingly. And so if you want to do something like that, you have to rip the Band-Aid off and get used to it and power through those nerves. And so having done all that, a little bit of public speaking, lots of competing over the years, it really thickens my skin to the point where competing in front of people or speaking in front of 300 people it's something I look forward to.
Oh man, my hands are sweating just thinking about fighting someone in front of other people. What did it feel like to do your first competition?
The first one was definitely the most challenging for sure because it's your first time and you're fighting another human being. And and I still remember every detail about it to this day. And of course, once it was over, it was a great feeling. Just get through it, say you did it. But in the moment, it was very scary. I kid you not, I almost passed out before even touching the guy. I got tunnel vision, and all of a sudden, I'm like, I'm going to go down without even touching this human being, and it's going to be the most embarrassing thing on the planet. But on the flip side, it was actually like a charity tournament, and the your entry fee was actually a gift because it was Toys for Tots fundraiser around the holidays, and instead of paying $100 to enter this tournament, it was just give a toy and that's your entrance fee. So in my mind, I'm like, I got to do this. I got to do this for the kids. I want it to be good and everything. So I got through it. And then my second match that day, I actually submitted the person. So it was a good feeling because the other thing too is it's not just the competing. I'm my coach at my professor at the time. This was in Los Angeles. Was John Machado, who is a legend in jiu-jitsu. So he's watching me. The tournament was actually at his brother's academy. So I was like, okay, I got to at least make John Machado proud, and I love the guy, and so I hope I did okay.
I feel like we could do 3 different interviews, one just on the
For sure.
fighting, one on your visual effects career,
Hmm.
one on the documentary, but okay, we'll try to fit it all in here. So, now I wanna talk more about your work in visual effects, and because I'm just so fascinated by how much goes into just a few seconds in
Oh
one
yes.
movie.
Oh yes.
And you had mentioned in your talk about how you had a part in the tiger jumping around on the boat in The Life of Pi. And so I'm wondering if there's any sort of story behind that, or just how long that took, how many people it took. I'm just so curious.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk for hours just about the tiger, not to mention everything else, because a lot of that film was literally filmed in a swimming pool in Taiwan. And we turned the swimming pool into an ocean with the tiger, the flying fish, just all the beautiful scenery. And it was literally filmed on a blue screen stage, but in a swimming pool, and that's it. And hundreds of artists are the ones responsible for turning it into what you see on the screen, which is this giant, fantastical, hyper, in some cases, hyper realistic world. And as far as the tiger is concerned, that takes dozens and dozens of artists and technical people to make it look photoreal. And before something like that even lands on my plate, in terms of what my role and responsibility was as an artist, it's touched by dozens of people. There's people that do the look development for the fur, for the skeleton, for the muscles, for how the joints move, for everything. And that whole process, just getting the look development, the testing, and building the tiger itself, probably I don't know exactly, but it definitely took months. And as far as what I did, worked on a bunch of the shots of the tiger in the sailboat and whatnot. And when the director and the visual effects supervisor, quote unquote, final your shot, they're typically looking at my work because I'm typically the last person that touches it I was a compositor. So a lot of it was in terms of my role and responsibility was that final photoreal integration, everything from the little contact shadows from the paws, touching the tarp or the inside of the sailboat, to the bigger shadows that cast on top of the rest of the boat, to like little things like there's a few shots where the tiger's on top of a tarp in the boat, and it's like, well, a tarp is sort of malleable a little bit, so the tiger puts his foot on the tarp and I have to make it look like there's a little smudge there or that the cloth just ever so slightly moves. Or even imagine, what happens when you jump on a trampoline? The springs on the outside stretch. And so
Hmm.
it's the same thing when a tiger, that they're several hundred pounds, I believe, they jumps on a tarp, the ropes and the tarp itself are going to bend and stretch. And in a lot of the shots I worked on, I was responsible for that. So
Wow.
it's that photoreal integration um, was my responsibility. So it was a labor of love, but it takes an army to do these things, to do shots that are that complex, that photoreal. And it was a great feeling that I kid you not, I had someone ask me, how the heck did you guys starve a tiger to get it to look that way at the end of the movie? And I'm like, no, 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 no. The tiger was not real. It was CG. But that's a compliment that
For
someone thought it
sure.
was real. And there's only a couple shots in the whole movie where they actually used a real tiger. So
Dang.
to get a compliment like that, and it's not just a compliment to me, it's a compliment to everybody that worked on that movie. I mean, I could talk for hours on it because I worked on that movie for over a year.
Okay. Oh, man, and then, I mean, you've had your hand on so many other things, right? There's some scenes with Thor and the Avengers and, I mean, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I worked on everything from Life of Pi and Golden Compass to several Alvin and the Chipmunk movies to Thor and the Avengers. The Age of Ultron was the Avengers movie that I worked on, and I worked on a lot of Thor shots in that movie. So I worked on Selma and let me think, what Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So
No
yeah,
way.
I know it's and trust me, I also worked on a lot of like bad stuff that kind of just went, the quote unquote, we used to say straight to DVD, but now it's sometimes straight to Netflix, the stuff
Right.
that doesn't get a theatrical release. So I worked on everything.
See, this is just so fascinating because I am all anytime I watch something, and I think this is why when I watch anything animated, my mind just goes off and I can't even follow the plot because I'm so
Yeah.
focused on how did they do that and how many people were behind that and how long did that take? And then I'm always wondering, okay, did they have fun making this or was it high pressure or was it all of the above? Like,
It's
whoa.
all the above. I'll tell you right now, Life of Pi was a well-oiled machine, and it was, yeah, we worked insane hours on it. I mean, Saturdays, Sundays, 10, 12, 15, 18-hour days, some from time to time, weeks without a day off. But it was one of those things where it was so rewarding, it was so fluid, and everybody was in tune, and there was this air of we're working on something really special. But I've also worked on movies that were an absolute disaster, just a nightmare to work on, just, clients that aren't the greatest and movie studios that are challenging. So I've worked on some things that were just, yes, it was stressful, yes, it was a grind, but it was an amazing experience. And then I also worked on some things that were never want to experience that again. So
So now let's move to your Instagram reels, which you have just been churning out, and they're so funny. And I have the same questions when I watch yours. I'm like, okay, did he do this so many times that he ended up not thinking it was even funny? Did he almost throw the towel in on this one? How long did this one take? Take us through the behind the scenes of one of your recent reels.
it's just a lot of experimenting and just trying to have fun with it because they take about 2 to 6 hours to make. I try not to overthink it because I can't tell you how many times where I've made something and I think this is it, this is the one, and it just you spend so much time on it and it flops. And then you work on ones that are kind of simple and didn't take you long, and you're like, well, that one actually did really well. So in terms of behind the scenes, I just try to be creative and simple. Where my ideas come from are it's all over the place. Some of them are just completely original ideas that pop into my head. Some of it is, of course, you look at what's trending on social media and maybe you copy it. Or a lot of times too, I've seen reels where it it it'll be the influence, but then I'll tangent something off of it. So, and the ultimate goal is just to have fun with it. And I always say if I'm the only one laughing, then hey, that's fine by me. But just making it fun and trying to make people laugh and just do silly things and not just do silly things. I'm putting myself out there in ways I never thought I would. I've never wanted to be an influencer. I've never wanted to be a social media person. And here I am going down that road kind of because you have to if you're going to do something like this. But at first it was very scary, very daunting, but now I'm just having fun with it. So,
See, and that's cool. It's like the fighting, it's like the speaking.
hmm
At first,
hmm
it's like, okay, this is scary. I've never done this. And now you're like a pro. And I'm laughing with you.
yeah,
So there's two of us. I think
yeah,
every time I see you, I'm like,
yeah. That, yeah, yeah, and again, I've had a lot of growth just within doing that because going back to some of the themes I've talked about in terms of overcoming fear and developing thick skin and not being afraid as to who's potentially watching you. Because I'll never forget, I was, scrolling through Instagram one day and on someone else's account popped up a reel that was of me 25 years ago, and I commented like, "Hey everybody, that's me." And then the next thing you know, just that comment kind of went viral. And before I knew it, I've had 15,000 likes on that comment. But I've also, within a day or two after commenting on that post, I got my first hate comments, just
oh,
nasty people. And I was like a turtle. I went back into my shell and I literally was like, I'm done. I'm pulling the plug. I'm not doing this. I'm deleting social media. Heck, maybe I won't even do the film. And luckily, I have some amazing friends that just encourage me to push through it. And now it's like if I get a mean comment, I just kind of laugh at the people and I don't care. Just don't care.
yeah. That's so good. That's really good. I've had those experiences too with my book. I had some really bad reviews and I was
Yep.
devastated. I was crying
Yes.
into David's chest when I got my first 2-star review. And then I'm like, wait a minute, these aren't my people. This isn't my
Exactly.
these are not the people I'm wanting to even reach. So it's okay. And it's actually good
Exactly.
when you start pissing people off and even, getting them to say those kinds of things to you, it means you're actually onto something and you're actually like tapping into their own insecurities too.
You hit the nail on the head. And one thing that's really helped me, and I also encourage you to do this for yourself, that when you do get those hate comments or those nasty people that know nothing about you and judge you within 2 seconds of quote unquote knowing you on the internet, the thing that I always whisper in my mind is the people that are doing that, they're never doing more than you. They're always doing less. And it's not meant to be mean or snap back because I don't really engage with people that are nasty. It's my mindset that helps me slam the door and just move on and just have a nice day and keep doing what I'm doing. And what was really helpful too is I'll never forget when I got my first defender people that
Oh,
I had someone say a nasty comment and then some other random person responded to the nasty comment defending me and I was like, okay, I like you said, I must be doing something right if I got haters and then I got people defending me. So I mean, what a wacky world it is being on social media, I'll tell you that.
oh yeah. And so then that reminds me of, so you've gone viral. Have you gone
Yes.
viral with one post or more now?
Right now, just one, and I kid you
Okay.
not, I'd have to look, but as of this morning, I think I'm about 800 views away from 1 million views on this one viral post. And if you had asked me that if that was something like that was ever going to happen to me, I would have said, no way, no. And even when I did that post, of course, I was like, whatever. I mean, when it hit 10,000 views, I was like, oh, sweet, that's a huge win. And then it just kept going and going and going. And then I was like, oh, sweet, it might be cool if it hits 50,000. And then it blew past that. And then I was like, can I do 100? And then I hit 100. And then and now here we are. I'm like a couple hundred views away from 1 million. And I'm just like, oh my God. And the way I describe it or the way I explain it now is like I'm really on the internet now. There's no getting Josh off the internet off the
Right.
internet.
Right. And that particular one, that was one that you looked at what was trending and took your own spin? Pun intended, because there's records.
Exactly. Yeah, I found a really funny video that was absolutely hilarious. It was actually in a different niche, and I just sort of took the idea and spun it to a niche related to music, and then I also added some different things to it and just kind of made it a little bit more my own, and the next thing you know, it's doing what it's doing. I even had the electronics brand that makes they make headphones, they make turntables. Audio Techna even commented on it. Yeah. I was like, yeah, again, must be doing something right if like a major brand thought it was funny, you know?
Oh, crazy. And then you told me there were a bunch of record stores that either started following you or liked it,
Both,
right?
both. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So because it was music themed and vinyl record themed, it caught on with a lot of DJs, a lot of record stores, a lot of people that love vinyl. And yeah, I mean, I definitely got some vinyl record store followers out of it. And I'm not even talking just in the United States, global. I mean,
So cool.
I've had record stores all over the world comment, like, follow, repost, like whatever, share. I mean, it kind of became this snowball that turned into an avalanche.
Oh, so you told me that you're gonna reach out to them when the documentary comes out and be like, "Hey, remember that reel that you like?
Yes.
Here's my." Are you still gonna do that, or do you need a whole team of people to help you?
No, no. I have this giant spreadsheet of targeted people, and not just the record stores, of all sorts of people. Because I've had some people like comment or like that have like 30,000 followers, and that's sort of the ticket to hopefully getting something out there is getting people that are better than you to help you. And so, yeah, one of those strategies that I'm planning on doing when it comes to marketing the film when it's finished is I am going to reach out to every single one of those record stores. And I mean, I've got record stores in Norway, in Germany, and even the Philippines. And I've already
Wow.
tracked down some people that speak the other languages that I may need. But for sure, I am going to call a record store in Germany and just politely say, hey, I don't know if you saw my whole account, but it's related to a film. I was wondering if you'd be willing to share XYZ post to help me promote the film. And hopefully people will say yes. And but you don't know until you try. But I've got hundreds written down, so I would like to think that I'll get a handful of hits.
Oh, yeah, and that's totally the way to go about it, and this perfect
Yeah.
mindset too, because, yeah, you probably will get some no's, but you have so many attempts that you're gonna get some yeses, and I'd be happy to help you with it. I that'd be a fun project to call a record store in
Uh,
Norway.
I might even call. I mean, it was specifically Audio Technica, Canada was the one that commented. And I'm like, maybe I'll see if I can call them. Call them. Again, what's the worst that can happen? They say no. So, and
Exactly,
maybe I'll have a good laugh with whoever runs their Instagram. But yeah, I'm just gonna go for it. I mean, why not?
and that's that you bring up a really good point, is that, your goal here on paper is to get these folks to help you and to help market your project, but you also have a goal to connect with the people. So even if nothing comes out of you reaching out to them, yeah, you're like, maybe I'll have a good laugh with that person. And that's really cool. And that's so important in the creative process.
Yes, and actually, you touch upon a great thing with what you said in that through doing what I'm doing with this film and being on social media and trying to promote it and whatnot, I have connected with some great people across the globe. And one of them, for example, is this woman, I believe she lives in England, and her and her husband literally travel the globe going to like every Foo Fighters concert everywhere. And
Really?
she takes phenomenal photographs, but she doesn't work for Rolling Stone or anything like that. And I came across her profile and started talking to her and politely asked like, hey, this is what I'm doing. Obviously I'm trying to avoid as much copyright and whatnot as I can with the release of my film. And so I just politely asked, like, hey, is there any chance you'd let me use some of your amazing photographs? I'll give you screen credit and I'll give you a shout out on my social media. And she was more than willing to do it. So I have a bunch of photos and videos that she sent me. I met this other guy, just this random kid. I think he's in his early 20s, and he is just an amazing drummer. He's a huge Dave Grohl fan. He's got 4 or 5 drum sets that are exact replica of the drum sets that Dave Grohl used to use when he was in
Wow.
Nirvana. And he and I have connected, and we talk with like voice messages over Instagram. And so I feel like this guy is like my friend now, and it's really cool. And then there's other people too. I've even connected with some people that I've met, 20, 30 years ago that I lost contact with, and boom, there they are. And I have one that's
Oh.
super, super funny if you want me to tell that story.
Yes, please.
This is really funny, actually. It was probably around 2001. I was at this Foo Fighters concert in Hartford, Connecticut, and myself and my little group of friends, we were, you do what you do if you want to meet the band. You try to find the tour buses and where all the roadies are and where they're loading in the equipment. And so we're in that area and waiting up by the fence and hoping to catch a glimpse of the band and say hello. And there was this guy, this kind of big dude, and we're all excited, we're happy, and just have a quick conversation with this guy for a minute or two. And he was super funny. And then the band rolls up and they roll down the window to wave at us. And this guy, he leans over the fence and he's like, Dave, can I sing Everlong with you on stage? And they just kind of laughed and drove off. And so we're watching the show, and no joke, I think it might have been the last song or something like that. The next thing you know, this dude jumps on stage and he starts singing the last couple verses of Everlong with Dave.
No.
And I'm
No.
looking and I'm like, that's the guy that I just met like an hour ago. And when the song was over, Dave yells into the microphone. He says, "Ladies and gentlemen, Homer Simpson." And
Oh.
because the guy kind of looked like one of the Simpsons characters, like I kid you not. So fast forward to about maybe 4 or 5 months ago, um, and it was actually that post that I was talking about earlier. Not, it was the post that someone else posted, and I was in it, and I made that comment like, "Hi, it's me," blah 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 blah. And then this guy posts and he's like, "Oh, he's like, I remember that event. I was there as well." And I was like, "Oh, I had a conversation with him." I was like, "Oh, cool." And then he asked me, he's like, "Do you by any chance have any footage from the show after this in Hartford, Connecticut?" And I'm like, "No, I don't." And then I click on his profile and I'm like, "Oh my God. It's Homer Simpson in the flesh." And I responded to him. I said, "Are you Homer Simpson?" And he goes, "Yes." And I was like, "Dude, we met at that show." And he was like, "Oh my God, I remember you." And so this guy that I had all of a 2-minute conversation with, 25, 26 years later, I run into him on social media. It's just what a small world, and that's been some of the joy that has come my way, not just enjoying the whole process of actually doing this project. It's been also the connections with other people and some of the stories that they tell me. So try to focus on the positive and not the haters and the nasty comments or anything like that.
Right. Yeah, because we need you to keep going. Because had you quit after that first hate comment, you wouldn't have been, experiencing all these fun connections and full circle moments and bringing people joy online. And um, so, speaking of people sharing those stories, you have spent years and years in visual storytelling, but the whole verbal storytelling thing is this new to you?
Absolutely. 99.99% of my career and my education was behind a camera, setting up lights, or doing 3D modeling, rendering, anything digital related. I've never been behind the camera in terms of like being a director or a producer. And more importantly, I'd never written a script or anything like that before. I've had a few ideas over the years, but I've never like written a script from start to finish of any kind. So that was my first trip to the rodeo, and it was a little scary, of course, but I took it and I did it, and before you know it, I had a 45 40-minute script as in my first draft. It was crazy. I couldn't believe how much just poured out of me.
Yeah, so take us back to that because on the stage you were telling us about how a knee injury knocked you down when you were in
Yes.
Italy and how you read Dave Grohl's autobiography and right
Yep.
after you finished that, you started writing and then you had your script. So What was it about Dave Grohl's book that lit that spark?
You know, it's hard to find one answer for that, but even though, of course, like, he and I are cut from 2 completely different cloths, I could for whatever reason, I could still relate to the struggle, and his stories were so fascinating because so many people know him as this world famous, super big rock star of when he was in Nirvana, and then, of course, coming out to be the front man, um, of the Foo Fighters, but a lot of people don't realize his background and where he came from. And I mean, he came from such meager beginnings, had a single mom, and his mom was a teacher. And he talks about how they struggled. And then, he dropped out of high school and just wanted to do music. And to to be as young as he was, because I feel like he might have been 17 around that age, very young, where he just dropped out of high school, packed up his bags, was in a punk band, and said, "See you later," touring the world. And I look at that as like, that is so scary. In my mind, I think, where's my next meal going to be coming from?
Yeah.
Where we, am I going to have a roof over my head tonight? And to see that he obviously overcame that fear and just continued to pursue his passion of music. And despite sleeping on floors and sleeping in squats in Europe and living off of a couple bucks a day, I mean, he tells this story about one of the things they used to do for food was they would buy salad in just a plastic bag, chop up one carrot, throw it in the bag, shake the bag, and then that's what he would eat. So
Mm.
you're talking about like really humble, meager beginnings and seeing how he did that. He did things that most people would shy away from and not take that risk of living out of your suitcase for years and years. You're this young kid. And seeing that how he just went for it was again very inspiring to me to just do the same thing with this project, which was, you know what, just go for it. Who cares how scary it is? And just try to make it happen because, he did it and maybe I can too. And also to he developed this network of people all over the world of places where you could sleep, places where you could eat, take a shower, and all these bands and friends of friends and family and people helping everybody out. Um, was just it was just fascinating to me to see how it went from literally nothing to, big superstar worldwide known figure. So
Right, yes, and I remember watching some documentary about it, and it was so good, and I've always liked the Foo Fighters. I saw them perform at the Fillmore. That was the
nice.
first and last concert that I, crowd surfed at, but, like, I he's just such a good dude. He's a real person, and you can just tell, and so
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And all the times I've met him and some of the other guys in the band, just super nice people, absolutely hilarious, and just nothing but nice things to say. And all the times that I got to meet him many years ago, but they're memories that I still, cherish to this day because think about whoever's listening, like think about who your idols are, whether they're some sort of musician or athlete or author, anybody, director, anything that you would just love to meet and sit down with for 20 minutes and have a conversation with. And I was very fortunate to be able to do that. And again, both he and Taylor Hawkins, just absolutely hilarious people and so polite and so friendly. I'll never forget it when I was backstage in their dressing room and they were just like, help yourself to all the food, and it's just like, wow, just totally regular people, except they get to tour the world and play in front of 10, 20, 30,000 people at the drop of a hat.
gosh, I can't even imagine. Oh my goodness, but it is comforting to meet your heroes and to have them be kind and humble. I remember, did I ever tell you that I met Justin Gaethje?
Oh, no way. I think he lives in Colorado here.
Yes, yep,
Yeah.
yeah, and when I was, working in the golf shop at Applewood Golf Course, he called one day to schedule a tee time, and I'm typing it in, and I'm like, "Okay, what's your last name?" And he's like, "Gaethje." I hang up the phone, and I was like, "Justin Gaethje? Is this the Justin Gaethje?" And he rolls in, and he's so nice, and I'm like, "I just have to say, you're my favorite fighter, and me and my husband, we watch you all the time, and your energy is so great," and he put his hand over his heart, and he's like, "Thank you, like, that means a lot," and then after his round, he and his friend, they brought their keys back and thanked us for everything, and it was just so nice. He and then my mom ended up working there, and then my mom even sent me a picture of her with him because she was like,
So
"Oh,
cool.
hi, I think you're are you just engaging? My daughter loves you. Can we take a picture?" And anyway, I could go
That's
on about
awesome.
that, but it's just good. It's just
Yes.
good.
Yeah. No, for sure. For sure.
So, okay, so Dave Grohl's book inspired you, but so many other things did. You said that stories of your mom were a big part of this project. I want to know more about your mom.
My mom was a huge music lover. I mean, just I mean, I don't think there was ever a time where there wasn't music blasting through the whole house and my mother dancing around and singing along. Music was a
Oh,
huge part of my mom's life. And, my mother was like a lot of mothers, like it was the type of thing where, I could glue two popsicle sticks to a piece of cardboard and she would think it was, a Picasso and be so proud of me. I'm sure you deal with that, do that too.
oh yeah.
And, and then as I grew up and whatnot, she was just so supportive. I got into drums and guitar and played in a band and played shows around New England in my little band. And she was just always so supportive of that. Didn't care about all the loud drumming coming from the basement. And then when it came to the Foo Fighters, she she just knew how much I loved them and how much of a fan I was of Nirvana and I was a huge fan of Dave Grohl when he was the drummer in Nirvana. I'd come home from a concert and I just remember sometimes she'd be up and immediately just want to hear about it. And if she wasn't up, I'd come downstairs the next morning and it's like the first thing she'd want to know about. I mean, she it could be a band she knew nothing about or a person she knew nothing about. She still want to hear about it. And then when I was in college, I can't tell you how many times like I'd go to check my mailbox and like there'd be a letter in there from my mom with like she'd cut out like a newspaper clipping of whether it was about Dave or whether it was about Nirvana or whether it was about the Foo Fighters. And so she was just this such a sweet, caring, supportive um, person. And so that's a little bit of about the relationship with my mom and I. And there was definitely that musical element to it. And she was almost more excited than I was when I told her I'll never forget that night I came home and I was like, Mom, you're not going to believe this. I got to hang out backstage with everybody and she just was over the moon. And then I remember years and years later when there was this group that my mom absolutely loved and her and my father would go to their shows all the time all over New England. And I'll never forget the time my mom called me up and said, Josh, I want to do what you did. I really want to meet these guys. How do I do it? And so I was like, okay, so this is what you got to do. These are the tips and tricks on how to hopefully meet your favorite band or celebrity or whatever. Same thing, but the roles were reversed. I'll never forget. She called me the next day and she's like, you're not going to believe this. I got to meet them. And
No way.
she's like, all your tricks and tips helped. Like I followed them to the letter and I did it and I can't believe it. And I got a picture with my favorite person in the group. And I said, okay, Mom, now this is what you do. Go get that picture printed out. And then the next time you go to see them and if try to meet them again, have them autograph the picture. And that's exactly what she did. So then the next phone call was, "Oh my God, you were right. He autographed the picture of he and I from the last show." And I was like, "Yeah, told you." So it just had that kind of
Oh.
loving, caring relationship with my mom, and she's just always so supportive.
Man, I love that. I love that so much. I can just see it all happening, and I just yeah, I really appreciate you sharing about her. Do you share stories about her in the documentary?
Not Really, there is a moment where she does come into the project for sure, because at the end of the day, one of the biggest reasons why I'm doing this too is because I wanted to dedicate it to her. And some people might think that like you're doing all this work and spending all this time and money, and when we hit August of this year, it'll have been 2 years that I've been working on this.
Oh,
And so some people
wow.
are confused, but to me, it's like this is the least I could do for her. You know what I mean? This
Yeah.
is the least I could do as a thank you for being an amazing mother. You brought me into this world. You were supportive of me all my entire life, and
Mhm.
and obviously I miss her dearly. So it's like the least I could do. And especially it comes to that full circle thing where how supportive she was of me, of being this mega Foo Fighters fan, traveling all over the country, driving hours and hours to shows, coming home at all hours of the night. So again, it's the least I could do. So there is an element, I do touch on it just a little bit. And then again, I'm going to dedicate the whole film to her. So
Oh. So, in your talk, I loved what you said, though, about how had you not endured so much loss and suffering, you probably wouldn't have been given permission to even do this project. And we're gonna have the link to your performance in the show notes, but I want to hear you talk about this again because it is so
yeah,
powerful and it's so relatable about
yeah.
I mean, there was a number of things that happened before you ultimately decided to make this. And
Yeah, yeah, no, this idea for this documentary it's been on my bucket list for over 20 years, 25 years. It's been on my bucket list. And I've told the stories, verbally so many times that so many people have been like, "Why don't you make something?" Like, "Josh, you studied film and you worked in the film industry. Like, couldn't you do something?" And so it always was in the back of my mind. But again, it's scary. The filmmaking process is it's exhausting. It takes a lot of time, and it's a different in terms of like quote unquote work or even just a hobby. It's a different animal than what most people are used to. So it's something that I always had on the back burner. And I had a series of events. I had a really tough I believe it was 2023. Around that time was a really tough year. I lost a very close friend to suicide, sadly. And then a few months after that, I watched my mother take her last breath. And, I had shoulder surgery. I had my appendix removed, and it was an emergency removal. And then when I fast forward to sitting in my Airbnb in Italy, reading the book and writing the script, I think all those events made me realize a couple things. Like, one, life is short, life is precious. When my time comes to meet my maker, I don't want to look back and go, that idea had been on my list for 20 years, 40 years, 60 years, and I never did it. And especially knowing that I have the capability to do it, but I still didn't do it. The other thing, too, was waking up to a phone call at 7 o'clock in the morning that your friend is gone. And then also watching the woman that brought you into this world, watching her take her last breath and exit this world, it made me realize that like what what could possibly be worse than that? And
mhm,
so, it that really put this huge gap between those events and the time, the money, the stress, finding dozens of artists to help you with this project, um, and just what it takes to make a documentary, because trust me, it's a lot of work, and it's even a small independent project that's 15 minutes long. It's a lot of work, but it made me realize that all that stuff doesn't even come close to the trauma and the sadness and the stress or anger. I went through a wide variety of emotions when I went through that period of my life. So it's just like, there's nothing worse than this. So why am I so afraid of tackling this project? So I just said, you know what? Let's do it. And and what was even funnier was originally I was just gonna do this super simple thing with my cell phone. I was just gonna shoot it on a black backdrop, and then I'll never forget the day I was on the phone with one of my best friends, Sean, and he's a bit more technical when it comes to cameras and lighting and sound than I am. So I called him up one day and I had a couple questions, and he's like, "Well, what are you doing?" And I told him my idea, and he just says, "Oh, well, I'll be your cinematographer if you want." And then the project
Oh.
spiraled out of control from there. Like, I'm not even kidding you. That it went from this little dinky, like nothing burger of a thing I was going to shoot on my cell phone to this giant, like big production with lights and camera and equipment and props and costumes. And again, I'm truly acting as the producer, director, writer of this film. And so I need other people for sound, for motion graphics, for visual effects, for music, and so and editing too. And so I've been connecting with people all over the planet to, just like when you watch a movie in the theater, you see the credit list at the end, all the people
Yeah.
that took to make it. And this is no different. I have a lot of people that are helping me out with this. So here I am, and it's just it's crazy, but it's a great feeling.
Okay, there's so much I wanna say. First, I can really appreciate Sean for saying, "Wait a minute. No, I'm gonna help you with this, and let's do this the right way." Because it reminds me of you when I was telling you all that I'm gonna start a podcast, and I'm like, "I'm just gonna start scrappy. I'm gonna start on Zoom and just, toss it out there." And you email me, you're like, "Brit, you can invest in a few very small pieces of equipment that
Yep.
don't cost that much that will make a huge difference." And then I got, like, really into it and have been really trying to make it nice with the sound and the lighting and been
Yeah.
struggling to figure it all out, but it's really
Yes.
fun to even when it's challenging to try to figure out why something isn't working, it's fun. It's like doing a
Oh,
puzzle. It's
totally.
like you're growing and there's nothing better than just learning something on the fly too.
Well
Um,
well, yeah, and absolutely, and again, you kind of just magically touched on another point here, which is about 5 years or so ago, I just woke up one day, I think it was more of a New Year's resolution, and I just said, "You know what? I wanna be smarter. I wanna do things in my spare time that not only provide joy, but make you a better person, make you smarter, make you know more, and, cut back on just Netflix and doom scrolling and playing video games. I mean, trust me, I still do all that, but I now fill a lot of my time with just learning things. And even though I come from a film background, trust me, there's a lot I've learned along the way, taking on this project. So it sort of fits into that bucket of just, over the last 5 years, I've learned a lot of different things, and it's all kind of come full circle.
yeah, it's awesome. It's yeah, I can't help but agree. Um, and then I wanna shine a light back on what you did share about what
Uh-huh.
ultimately gave you permission. Thank you so much for sharing that again. I I firmly believe that someone listening is just feeling changed and inspired by this, just like the one attendee from the event. I'm sure there's plenty, but there's at least one person that we know of that you changed the trajectory of her life by sharing your story. She After the show, she decided to quit her job, go back to school so that she can work with kids again. It's like, that is so amazing. It's almost like you're
Yeah,
paying forward what all these other things that have influenced you.
sure.
Now that thankfully you're sharing them and putting them out there, it's contagious. And you gave someone else permission, which is so cool.
Yeah, no, it's a great feeling, and that ties into what I said at the very beginning about I like public speaking and I like connecting with people. And sometimes it's not just me giving. It's like I also take things back from just being up there and feeling that energy from the crowd. And so it's an honor to know that me speaking unlocked the door for someone's next step in life and to take that chance and to try to accomplish a goal. Because I think a lot of people they like security, and I don't
Mhm.
blame anybody for that. But also, if there's something out there, just don't be afraid, and certainly don't be afraid to fail.
Um, okay, so I have a burning question for you. What is your plan for the launch of the documentary? When can we see it?
Oh man. So yeah, so Out of the Wishing Well, stories, memories, Foo Fighters. The plan is I of course want to have some sort of local premiere screening. I'd like to do some sort of event at a theater here and just invite friends and probably open it up to the public too. And then of course YouTube. And also I think I'm gonna look into submitting it to some film festivals. And I've even talked to a couple people that have some connections to people at like PBS. And then, of course, market the heck out of it and just try to get it out there. And since day one, I've always said, like, I don't care if it gets one view, 10,000 views, a million views, 5 views. It's just, I want to do it. I want to dedicate it to my mother. And whatever happens, happens. And, I'd like to think that it'll do okay. I did get back the first rough cut a couple weeks ago, and I am just over the moon as to how it's coming along and how it's developing, because I was just so scared about we did all this work and all this shooting, and we shot on multiple locations even, and so to finally get back a tangible asset that is coming out like I'd hoped it would is an amazing feeling. So, and as far as when it's going to be released, I'm really hoping at the by the end of this year. Originally, I was hoping last year, and then I was like, "There's just no way." Especially when things got bigger, when we started adding like visual effects to it, and we're shooting on green screens. And I'm also having some 2D animation made for it as well. And I'm just getting antsy. And my friend Sean, who I spoke about earlier, he hit me over the head. He's like, Josh, we both worked in visual effects. You remember how long this stuff takes? And I was like, I know. But when you're the one behind it all, you want that you want that quick satisfaction. So I'm hoping at the end of this year, if it pushes into 2027, so be it. But it's happening. It's moving forward.
Oh, it's so exciting. And again, I just love your mindset with it and just being okay with whatever direction it's going to take and trusting that what you're creating and what you're pouring into is going to do what it's meant to do. And what's so cool is with it being on YouTube, you may not even see the ripples for a decade or something, like all of these
Yeah.
things that have been coming full circle for you from all these
Hmm.
other stories and these other experiences. Who knows what's going to come down the line? So,
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm not doing this for fame or money, and I'm certainly not doing it as some sort of like calling card in terms of getting to meet the band again. No, I'm not doing it for any of those reasons. I'm doing it for literally a couple reasons. One is just because it's on my bucket list. I've always wanted to do this. I've always wanted to, coming from a film background, I've always wanted to make something of my own from start to finish. And then even the more important reason, I wanted to do it for my mom. So that's where I have that mindset where if it gets one view, I don't care. Like I did it, and it was worth it. It's been a lot of
uh,
fun. It's been a lot of fun.
so I hate to be the person that asks this when you're in the thick of it, but do you think you'll make another documentary down the road, or is there another project in that's on the horizon that now feels less scary because of what you're doing now? Curious.
Boy, oh boy. It's funny. I've been waiting for that question from somebody. And
Really?
yes, I've been wondering if someone was ever going to ask me, like, so you going to do anything else after this? And the short answer is yes. The long answer is we'll see, because I do have another idea. It's not a documentary, it's an actual, movie idea. And
Oh,
this is another idea that I've had for even longer than the Foo Fighters project. Based on a short story that I wrote in college,
no
and
way.
yeah, and I still have the story all these years later. And I kid you not, I've touched it a bunch of times in the last year. Adding ideas to it, adding script ideas and character ideas. So there's that. And then I do have another documentary idea that I'm considering as well. It would be about my grandfather's experience in World War II, because he was
Whoa.
he was a bombardier of a B-17 that got shot down over Nazi territory, and he was a prisoner of war. And one of the sort of gotchas of that project would be potentially I shouldn't exist because for a lot of reasons. One, my grandfather's plane could have crashed as they were, I think they were around the Baltic Sea. They could have crashed into the ocean and they would have died for sure. Um, they were able to parachute out over land, but they were captured by the Nazis. And guess what? My grandfather is 100% Jewish, and so it's a miracle that they didn't just kill him. It really messes with your head to realize, wow, how fragile life is, and that I shouldn't exist. So there's that idea. But the other idea, based on the short story, I think if I were to do that, I'd want to try to get some real money behind it. I luckily have a very distant friend of my family, that's a scriptwriter in Hollywood. He's worked with like Johnny Depp and Sacha
Dang.
Baron Cohen, yeah, Sacha Baron Cohen and people like that. And so I think when the time's right, I might be like, "Hey Eric, so could you get me in front of like Warner Brothers or something like that?" I don't need $200 million for some of these movies are 100 million, 150, $200 million movies. I'm like, can I get a million? Heck, qu- uh, could I get $250,000 to pursue this idea? And some of these big movie studios do things like that. So again, it's a pipe dream. It's a reach. It's a long shot, but that's not for a while
Yeah,
because
no, no, no.
yeah, one day at a time, one day at a time.
Yeah, no,
But
I felt terrible asking, but the the real
no, I was
reason
waiting for that one day.
I know, not till now did someone ask you this
Yep.
question, but really just to show that the more you do things and
Uh-huh.
that 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 now that you're doing this, maybe some other things feel possible down the road. And
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's given me this confidence to move forward with things like that. Another piece of mindset advice that's helped me over the years is telling myself it's going to be okay. If I put X number of dollars into this documentary, I'm going to be okay. And here I am approaching the 2-year mark, and guess what? I'm okay. So that's what I tell myself a lot of times.
you're more than okay. You have so many cool stories and experiences before you've even launched the thing, which is
Oh, thank
so
you.
cool and so inspiring. Oh my gosh, I could talk to you all day about all of this. I feel like we're just scratching the surface, but I so appreciate you taking the time to share all of
Of
this,
course.
and I'll put your all your info of how people can stay connected with you in the show notes, because there's a lot of people now on the edge of their seats just waiting to see what happens next with this and all these other projects that you have up your sleeves. So so inspiring.
Yeah, thank you. Definitely follow on Instagram, and anybody listening, don't hesitate to reach out and say hello or ask a question or tell a story because I love connect. That's been one of the happy accidents of this whole adventure is just connecting with people and just having a lot of fun with it. So yeah, of course would appreciate any support, and yeah, and I appreciate your support too, Britt.
Of course, yes. You I owe you because you helped me with production and not till now. That was amazing. That was so great. Not only were you speaking, but when you weren't speaking, you were wearing headphones in the back and talking to the sound booth and telling them when the mics weren't working, and I knew out of all people that you would have been the only person that I could have asked to speak and do production, but because of all your experience, because you even said you've worked on commercials or
Yeah,
you've been on a lot of production sets, and so I was like, "Hey,
yeah.
all right,
Yep.
cool."
Yep,
So,
yep. I've done events like that in the past on the production side. I haven't done it in years, so it was actually kind of fun to wear one of my very old hats and dip my toe back into my former life. And the same thing with the film. It's like dipping my toe back into my former life. So it's been great.
well, Yeah, just so continually inspired by you, and
Thank you.
just can't wait to see what happens next. And thank you so much
Absolutely.
for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of Not Till Now. I hope this conversation stirred something in you. Don't forget to check the show notes for a recap and ways to stay connected. And if you know someone in your life who needs permission, send this to them. See you next time.